I'm focused on the spirit cause it keeps me from this fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about what journalists got wrong in 2024. There's a Semafor article that has a bunch of journalists and influencers and stuff talking about things that they got wrong in 2024. I want to go over that, and I ask some questions like, what are some underreported stories of 2024? And most people seem to agree that was Biden's mental decline, and which we've talked about a lot, and how journalists are like, oh, I can't believe how I missed that story. And it's not that it was impossible to see, it's not that these people were blind, but it's just, like the emperor has no clothes. They didn't want to buck the system, and they wanted to go along with the charade, and that's what it is. And we really need to question people who give us the news, basically, because they allow themselves to be so blinded due to their bias. And everyone has a bias, but we need to be honest about what those biases are, and still try to think critically, and ask questions, have good faith to, people that we're talking to, etc., so we can just, try to come to sensible conclusions and not walk through life like chumps, basically. So we'll be talking about that. Also, another underreported story, someone wrote on Facebook, because I posted this question on Facebook and YouTube, and someone pointed to be a Planned Parenthood video about how virginity is basically a social construct. And I just watched it. I'm a little floored. I'm gonna save that probably till the end, because there's a lot of graphic language in it, and if you want to dip out, I'll let you dip out. But, I'm like, I had heard about that, but I didn't cover it. I didn't watch the video before, and I just forgot about it. And I think it's important to talk about, because organizations like Planned Parenthood and so on, or even how they put sex education in schools, Thomas Sowell would say that the goal isn't actually to stop people from discourage, people from having sex. It's to normalize sex instead. And I think Planned Parenthood really showcases that, and other organizations like Guttmacher showcase that as well. But I'll wait till we get that particular segment. And it's just a wild video, really wild video. Anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what we do here, you can, support the website, blacktnews.com/donate, because those cost a stream and run my site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate you guys. And, you guys can also check out different merchants available at blacktnews.com. You guys can check out different books that I've written. Like, I have my posters behind me of some of my books, and I have, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion over there behind me. And it's funny, last night I went over my nephew's house, and we his younger sister, for Christmas, and I told you guys this, they were giving away books that they had and exchanging it with their classmates. And so she didn't have a chapter book, but her older brother had a chapter book, and it was my chapter book that I gave to him for Super Kid. And so they're like, "Well, we can ask Daniel if we can give away that book." And so he started crying and he was upset. He's like, "No, Cece gave me that book. Cece gave me that book." And so his mom was just like, "We can get you another book. We can get you another book." And so I told them, like, they called me and I said, "I will give him another book." So they gave it away. And I guess the student teacher like called to make sure, like, is it okay to give this away? And I don't know if they thought that it was specialized or something like that, but they said it was fine to give away. So they end up, reading some of it and giving it away and stuff. Um, so anyway, I brought over a book for my nephew, and so he started like asking questions. He's like, "Where'd you get this paper from? And how did you make this?" And went through all these questions about it and stuff. And he thought like each book. He's like, I thought it cost maybe like $50 each to make each book. I'm like, how would that be profitable? I'm like, and I was in the car talking to my older sister on the way home about it. I'm just like, I wouldn't have given him my book if it cost $50 to make. Like his perception is just really off about that. But anyway, I do write children's chapter books, as well as my nonfiction stuff. So and I write books for older viewers and stuff, readers and stuff too. But that's Super Kid, the book I gave to my nephew. It's a really fun book if you haven't read it or gotten it for your kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews and stuff. Um, and then you start asking about audiobooks. That's something that I will have to actually sit down and do and record, at least Super Kid. But I got lots of books that you guys can check out and get for yourself. There's a link in the description that should take you to an Amazon page. But if you go to blacktnews.com on the merchandise page, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website. But my book website is ninjadustpublishing.com. So yeah, you guys can check out my stuff and I hope that you get it, you know, last day of the year. So go ahead and just check it out. Anyway, you guys can also check out other merch that we have, like I got my black tea mug behind me and t-shirts and other stuff like that. So support if you can. And I just thank you for watching, for sharing, for commenting. All that stuff does really help Black Tea News. Thank you guys for watching live. So many of you, I see you in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. I know you guys can't see each other. Sometimes people from Twitch will pop in and stuff too. And I just thank you guys for watching every day. Some of you watch every day. And if you can't watch live, you'll watch back later and comment, when you're cooking dinner or on your way home from work. And I really appreciate it. And I don't take it lightly. There's a lot of people who commentate on the news. So I appreciate that you know, you like what I have to say and that we have fun together. Some of you comment like, "Oh my gosh, she's going on one of her rants." So, thank you guys for being here through ups and downs and just being here and watching and commenting, and especially all of your love and condolences when my mother passed away, and times when I'm ill, you're like, "Take your time, get well, take care of yourself." Even that time when I kinda, like, burned my face off with some, like, chemi um, with some kinda chemical stuff that I had, and they're just like, "Take your time." You guys are just really, really sweet, and I appreciate you. I really, 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 really do. So, anyway, we got a lot of news that I kinda wanna get to, so let's go ahead and hop into it. I wanna start with the things that we got wrong, 2024, this article. I'm gonna skim through. I really only care about the political stuff, so I'm gonna try to just skim through the political stuff. I mean, some people said some sports stuff, some people said some stuff about AI and other things, but it's mostly a lot of journalists and their opinions. You got Steve Bannon and um, Rachel Maddow and other folks. So let's see what they got wrong. One of the quotes I shared on Facebook, and man, it started to get around just how silly um some of their comments were. So we got Andrew Ross Sorkin, Doge, and the pairing of Elon and Vivek together was not on my bingo card for 2024. I don't know how it could have been on anyone's bingo Let's go on. Looks like my internet's a little wonky. Well, you guys can see me. I would suspect I'm kind of probably blurry to you, but I'm still here. Um, Steve Bannon said that Taylor Swift would make a bigger difference than she did with low propensity, low information voters. It was teed up, but she waved off. Contrary to early reporting by everyone on MSNBC to Washington Post, the Swifties were washing their hair on November on the 5th of November. I didn't really think that Taylor Swift would make a huge splash in the election. I mean, because she's come out and she's said stuff before, and we know where she stands. Like, she got so mad after a midterm and was crying about Marsha Blackburn, how she doesn't really care for women. And when they say they don't really care for women, they mean that they're not pro-abortion or whatever. And I just think that a lot of people view these celebrities as like people they like listening to their music, and maybe they follow them and like their clothing, and they might trust them on where to get a good smoothie. But as far as who um they're going to vote for, these people don't pay your bills. You pay their bills. You pay their bills. They don't pay your bills. So what impacts you every day in your life, you're not going to leave that up to Taylor Swift. And I mean, he said low propensity, low information voters. She probably did impact low information voters, but you know, though that but they don't mean anything unless they actually get up and go out there and vote. Now Trump and Charlie Kirk and them, they really went out there to push for low propensity voters to go out there. They went, but they actually went to those college campuses and they debated these people, and you know really made their cases on these podcasts and stuff. And it's really different because you had people close to it, or actually the candidates themselves with Trump and JD Vance, going to go actually reach out and convince people to go out there and vote for you. It's different when you have some kind of talking figure celebrity go out there and say stuff. So I'm not surprised by her lack of influence there. You guys can let me know if you thought she'd have a bigger impact, but I thought it was silly when Trump tweeted out, "I hate Taylor Swift," or I mean, I think that was a real tweet and stuff. I just was like, just ignore her, just ignore her. But celebrities, I don't know if they'll like get a clue eventually. Like Oprah, she made a difference with Obama, but she couldn't push Kamala over the finish line. But celebrities were really trying for Stacey Abrams. You had when Stacey Abrams was going first term, well, first try anyway. You had celebrities going knocking doors at colleges like Katy Perry and other folks, and at the end of the day she still lost. So celebrities, we pay their bills, they don't pay our bills, and they just kind of have to stay in their lane. I'm not saying that they can't speak and they can't voice their opinions on stuff, but if you sound like an idiot speaking about politics, it doesn't matter if you're rich and famous, you still sound like an idiot. You have to know what you're talking about. Lizzo was very vocal on TikTok, and she went on the campaign trail in Detroit and stuff, and stomped for Kamala Harris. But she sounded like an idiot. She sounded like an idiot. So it doesn't impress people. It doesn't impress people. Okay. That's AI. Rachel Maddow said, "I thought people would be more unnerved by JD Vance, less cat lady thing, and more Americans are going to have to get over the dictatorial phobia." I don't um I saw people talking about this particular clip with Rachel Maddow and JD Vance. He started off when he was announced with like historically low favorability as far as candidates, and people were like, "Aha, this was a bad pick. This was a bad pick." And JD Vance, I think, was the only one on the main ticket who ended up above water. And people are Trump's favorability. I don't know if it's favorability, but approval rating is I think above board right now and stuff. But JD Vance like worked for it. Like he worked for, I mean, he's not working for money, but he put in the time. Like he was worth it. He proved his doubters wrong, and I was a person who had concerns. He just was so good at interviews and was great at his debate. There were things I didn't love that I criticized him on, here or there, but overall he was able to speak the message in a way that the other people on the top of the tickets really couldn't articulate. So JD Vance is a force, and I think that if people just ignore him, put him on the back burner, they're gonna be real surprised, I guess, and he's just gonna take the world by storm. The only thing about JD Vance is he's not I know he obviously doesn't have Trump's charisma. Most people obviously don't, but as far as like captivating a crowd or something, I don't think he quite has that. But other than that, he's a force to be reckoned with for sure. Hi in the chat. I see more people coming in the chat. Hello, hello. Um, let's get some more. Caitlin Collins of CNN said 2024 served as an ultimate reminder to never assume what the news is going to be. We were surprised at almost every turn of this election. As a reporter, you should always operate with an open mind. It's easy but risky to think you know where the story is going. This year reminded us that we don't. Mark Cuban said, I was wrong about the election outcome. Obviously, Mark. Obviously, Mark. I think that is really too small of a sentence for Mark Cuban. Because yeah, you were obviously wrong, but you were wrong so just all throughout the election, the way that you stomped for your candidate, that you tried to push for your candidate was just wrong, 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 wrong. Like he made a tweet that was really viral about how Trump doesn't keep strong women around him, and which isn't the case and was never the case. And actually, my sister who worked for the campaign ended up getting like a shout out on TV because they were just mentioning some of the women who worked for the Trump campaign, and so they mentioned her name. And um, he just really made himself look like a fool, in my opinion, during the campaign. And he wasn't one who was like really big into politics. That's like more of a recent development. But yeah, he and to put so much on the line for someone who you can not like Trump, but at least he's done the job. Kamala Harris doesn't exude confidence for the American people. Like if you're a business person and she was coming in as the president, I don't think there's any reason for you to be excited and feel like we're going to be okay. I'm not saying we would be okay because America will stand the test of time, I suppose, but to feel that she's just going to take the reins and guide us to a better tomorrow, there's no reason to have any kind of confidence. And some of her economic policies just displayed pure, I don't know, amateur hour an intellectual deficiency. From the price controls and the capital gain stuff. Just she just wasn't it. She just wasn't it. But Mark, God bless him. God bless him. Dana mentioned Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and don't care about that too much. Mehdi Hassan said 2024 was a year I posted my wrongest ever tweet. I don't This is a really wrong tweet. I don't know if it's his most wrong, but he said, I think Republicans will regret setting the bar so low for Biden and helping spread the distorted image of him as a guy who was totally out of it, suffering from dementia, no grip on reality, no ability to speak, a very low bar for him to clear tonight. A few hours later, he was promising to beat Medicare. That's so funny. A few weeks later, he had quit the race. Like many others, I was completely, utterly, totally, embarrassingly wrong about Biden's lack of mental competence, but I remained right about Trump's. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Everyone can. Trump went on Rogan and all these other podcasts, long form podcasts, and was able to speak, and everyone saw he was fine or whatever. People trying to make it seem like Trump is losing it in a way that we are witnessing Biden lose it. It's just silly. But beat Medicare wasn't even the worst thing. I think the worst thing was absolutely Biden and the probably just botching the abortion question when he insinuated that women need abortions in case they're impregnated by their sisters, and that they need abortions because of the issue with illegal immigration, and you could be raped and impregnated by an illegal alien that he let into the country. He just beat Medicare was bad, but that wasn't even like the worst thing. That wasn't even the worst thing. Um but I did think that was a low bar to clear, and I did think that Republicans, shouldn't have really set that bar so low, because it was an easy bar to clear, but he couldn't even clear that bar. But there was always a chance that he would have had one of his good nights, one of his good days on the debate stage, but it all fell down. uh, let's keep going. That's about Hollywood. Tim Miller, host of the Bulwark podcast. That's the Bill Crystal, who I guess will still fancy himself to be a conservative, but has just really betrayed so much of his past values because he's a neocon who hates Trump. So he's just warped his entire worldview. I think I judge President Biden too generously for most of his term, and he revealed himself to be less concerned about protecting our democratic institutions than legacy. As a result, both will be badly tarnished. I thought Trump would have the juice to get Matt Gaetz through, and was surprised he pulled out, so to speak. I thought the Nuggets would be able to overcome the offseason. That's sports, whatever, I guess. Um, yeah, everybody was the media was absolutely too generous toward Biden and his legacy. And the only reason I think people are really coming out and being all mean, like Chuck Todd went off about Joe Biden, and I played that video maybe about 2 weeks ago. They're mad because of the outcome, and they're mad because he didn't step aside, and they feel that if they could have got him out early enough, then they could have put out somebody who could have defeated Trump and stuff. But everybody played along with this game. At any point, Democrats could have been like, "No, we're actually going to have a primary because we're really old," or people are just upset, and we need it's a change election. If you didn't inspire and make it so that the entire like Democrat Party wanted to be like, "Yeah, you're going to be the nominee again," then that's your fault. Too bad, so sad. We're gonna open primary, bruh. And we're actually gonna have debates, and you're gonna have to deal with it. But they didn't want to do that. DNC didn't want to do that, and it eventually just led to downfall after downfall. And they didn't press hard on his mental decline, and they didn't help to politically force Biden out. They went along with it. So now since the dust has cleared, they're all looking for someone to point the finger at. And now people in retrospect are like, you know what? Biden wasn't such a nice guy. Like Chuck Todd was like, um, you know, the Biden legacy and Hunter Biden and all that, like all this stuff is garbage. And Hunter Biden, you know, he he started complaining about all the immoral stuff that he did after the pardon situation. It's like, but you guys weren't saying all this stuff before. The Biden family is like the they're the trashiest kind of family. The trashiest kind of family, but they're a first family. But it's just incredible the sorts of things, shenanigans that they got into as far as shady business, shady. business dealings, as far as s- Hunter sleeping with his brother's widow, getting her addicted to drugs, and Biden and the creepy stuff that his daughter wrote about him in her diary. There's so many things that are weird about this family, just so strange. But they cover for this man, and they cover for the family. And Biden has always been corrupt. It's not a new thing. He's always been shady. He's always kind of bucked the trend as what was normal to kind of advance himself. So people pretending like he cared about our democratic institutions so much, you know, um, everything kind of moves and is relative. So maybe the Biden of 10 years ago was a lot better than the Biden today, but the Biden in the past still might have been extreme compared to where everyone else was then. So he was the one who was be moving along with the goalposts and stuff. So he has tarnished himself for sure. But y'all could have y'all just really hated Trump, and now y'all mad because he lost to Trump, and now you guys can be honest about Biden. Um, let's see. Trying to find some more. There's definitely some more. Jessica Lesin, founder of CEO of The Information. A year ago, I thought X might become less globally significant as it became overrun with fake news and conspiracy theories. Clearly, that hasn't happened. The mainstream media got to push their conspiracies. They're still the mainstream media, aren't they? I also thought Bezos might sell Washington Post, but I don't think that there's any way that happens. He's all in. Um, there's definitely fake news and stuff on X, but what I do appreciate on X, and I've said this many times, if you tweet something and it's wrong, there will be people can put a community note on there. So prior to Elon having X, when people would write stuff on Twitter, like in 2016 or afterwards or whatever, Trump might be at a rally or so. Well, this is a real example. Trump was at a rally one time and he was telling a story about General Grant. The point of the story was to talk about how great of a General Grant was to come in and win the Civil War and all this stuff. But in order to set up General Grant, he had to talk about gosh, what's I just oh the general of the South. I don't know why it's slipping my tongue. Someone in the comments help me out here. It is so easy, but it just slipped my mind. Robert E. Lee, thank you. I just thought about it as you typed it. Robert E. Lee, thank you, thank you. That's obviously the one I was trying to think of. He's talking about Robert E. Lee and how Robert E. Lee, thank you, people in comments. Robert E. Lee, um, how he was just winning battle after battle after battle, but it was all to set up how Grant came in and won. And if you watched the rally, that's what he was doing. He's a great storyteller. And so people in the media just start talking about how he's praising Robert E. Lee. And then the tweets go around and around and around and around. And I think they also took something out of context and stuff too. And so that was what was going viral. And then eventually, and I can't remember which uh major news or whatever was the one who basically started this tweet, but eventually they did another tweet, I think, under that thread, or they made a new tweet. But the first tweet did went around way more than the correction, and that would happen all the time. They tweet something out, and they're like, "Oh, here's our correction," but the lie or the thing that's taken out of context was the thing that got around the world and was seen a million times and so on. So now with community notes, if you write something that's false or that needs context, people can be like, "Hey, community notes," and you can add a note in there like there was a crazy one the other day with JD Vance, and I don't know if I liked it, but I think I screenshot it. And it was some group was talking about yeah, current affairs tweeted right wing populism usually consists of men who were born to immense privilege and went to elite schools, railing against people who are, in fact, many times less powerful and influential than they are. And you know what the issue? I don't know if you guys could see. Well, yeah, that's the tweet. So there's JD Vance on there in this tweet that they have, and it says Ivy educated venture capitalists, pointing at JD Vance. And then next to Vance as Trump, Ivy educated real estate developer. We all know JD Vance grew up to a single mother who is addicted to drugs in like the poorest part of the country, right? Like one of the poorest parts of the country. Um So simply referring to JD Vance as a venture capitalist without any other context of how he grew up to be like, oh, those rich guys are at it again, trying to stick it to Americans without acknowledging that he had to have help, pulled himself up by his bootstraps or whatever, but he didn't do himself. He had a grandmother and other folks who helped him along his way to get to where he is today. But trying to just pass him off as if he doesn't understand what average Americans go through or just really, really poor Americans go through, it is silly. It's silly. So anyway, that tweet has a community note on it. And and people were just ragging on this particular tweet. And so it just added some context. It just added some context about how JD Vance was raised in a low income household by grandparents and attended a rural public school, et cetera, et cetera. So even if you have a very viral tweet that goes around or uh, very viral article or something, there will be a community note that'll follow it. People will even get notifications about the community note. So this was added here, so people can be more likely to be corrected with that information, false information that they were spreading. So if you want to talk about fake news and conspiracy stuff, that stuff existed on X before. And people wrongly tried to suppress things on Twitter, like the Hunter Biden laptop story. People tried to suppress true things about COVID that people were saying, but it was inconvenient information regarding, COVID, because they wanted people to live in fear. And so Elon has put largely a stop to a lot of that stuff. So um there's things about X that could be changed, should be changed or whatever, but there have been some great improvements, and people just want to view it through the lens of it's illegitimate and really fake news because Elon is at the helm, when the truth is they were pushing false stuff before. And these people have their nerve pushing stuff like mainstream news where they got Pulitzer prizes for the Russia collusion hoax stuff. Like, get out of here with that mess. Um, Still, Stella Bugby, style editor of the New York Times. It wasn't so much that I got things wrong as I lacked the imaginative capacity to predict the chaos of 2024. Two assassination attempts on Trump, hawk to crypto, learning that RFK Jr. left a dead bear cub in Central Park, then seeing him be nominated to run the Department of Health, and then immediately watching him question the polio vaccine. The mind boggles. Um, I I don't know. From my understanding, I think he's fine with the polio, or nothing's going to happen with the polio vaccine. But I think that just the schedule is stuff that people question. I kind of don't know what Hakatu thing is. It's some girl, right? I don't know any other context than that. I don't think I care to though. But the two assassination tips on Trump, that was wild. I didn't hear about the dead bear cub thing. Anyway, uh, let's move on. Uh, Andrew X is senior managing partner of CS Interactive said, to me, the answer is obvious X. Like many, I foolishly scoffed at what looked like a legacy media business committing sell side suicide. Turns out it was just transmorgifying into Elon's massive poop machine. Okay. Um, haters. Haters. Seems to be media stuff, basketball stuff. That is world's global stuff with Hezbollah being taken out very quickly by Israel. Is Israel like dominated, man, as far as like their beeper situation and just taking out these terror regimes very quickly and covertly. Pretty impressive. Um Chris Balfe, a partner of Red Seed Ventures, said, I was convinced that 2024 would be the year when major platforms like Meta, TikTok, and X finally stepped up to challenge YouTube's dominance in video monetization for creators. Unfortunately, despite how quickly the creator economy is growing, YouTube remains the unchallenged leader, and nobody has really made much progress against them. Yeah, YouTube is still pretty darn dominant, and YouTube keeps changing too. Like they really pushed and have been pushing for their shorts to really compete with like TikTok and stuff. And TikTok has shifted too. Like TikTok is now pushing more like long form content, and you could put, I don't know, you might be able to put, you could put things that are at least a half hour on TikTok now. I don't know if you can go longer than that. Uh Brian Lahers said, many callers to my show said Joe Biden was in no shape to run for re-election. I mostly dismissed it as ageism. Then I watched the debate. I also never thought Juan Soto would sign with the Mets. Yeah, people have eyes. You just didn't want to see. This is another example. People did not want to, I don't know. They could see. They weren't blind, so they could see it. They just blocked something in their brains, so they could not process properly what they were seeing and understand it to be reality. They went through what Yuri Bizimov, I think that's how you say his last name, but he was a former KGB agent. He was talking about the demoralization of society and how they could get to a point where you could show someone when someone's been completely demoralized, you could show them something that's true and you could produce all the evidence and they won't believe it. They won't believe it. So you couldn't see it. We could all see it. And it's funny that this man's callers, because you get some people who are listening to a radio show and just kind of tuning in and maybe call for the first time or whatever. But usually when people call into a show, they are people who are listeners. So this is your audience calling you saying Biden can't go the distance, and he still couldn't grasp it. Still couldn't grasp it. um Derek Thompson, host of Plain English and staff writer of The Atlantic, which wrote some crazy pieces this year in politics throughout 2024. I thought young men were shifting right and young women were shifting left. But Trump's win was so totalizing that even young women seem to have shifted right. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard for a while though that even Gen Z is more conservative than like past generations, and not that there's a bigger percentage of them that are conservative compared to like other groups, but the amount of them at their age bracket are more conservative than other groups were, at the time when they were that young. So, you know, they tried. They tried, to really, really get that youth vote and shifted that way, but they they left them nothing to aspire toward. All they really pushed was like fear porn as far as like not voting for Trump. And there's people who fell for it, but I've got to say that these influencers like Harry Sisson and Dean Withers, I think his name, and other folks that they have, Chris Mallory on TikTok, they're they say some of the dumbest things. They can say things that come off as intelligent, but at the same time, they will reach in the most ridiculous ways, and they will have a lot of followers, and a lot of them are young, very young, too young to even vote, but they'll have a lot of followers, and they'll, like and whatever their content, but they are not having the reach that they ought to have because they push dumb stuff. Harry Sisson pushes the dumbest stuff in every video. He'll have breaking news, and it'll just be silly garbage. So if I were the Democrats pouring money into these influencers, I would rethink everything. And then some of these influencers who they wanted to pay on TikTok to influence all these people, some of them just tattled and was like, I got this script. And I said no. And it's funny that there's a lot of other influencers who are saying the script that I got. So they got paid off. There were some influencers that just let people know right up front, like off rip, that they were being paid to say what they were saying. And people got checks, they can do what they want, but there's a reason why Trump doesn't pay influencers, because now there's people who will say stuff and are kind of going along and saying stuff because they want access and influence. But as far as paying folks, there may be like some donors or different groups that said that they were willing to pay stuff. But Trump himself, they don't like to pay influencers because they don't want it getting out and then the message being compromised because people are just bought off. And they figure people will do it anyway. So they just don't have a good means of influence. They don't have good arguments. It's just always that side is bad. Believe that they're bad, but they don't have anything to offer as far as future to these people, and they didn't have a good vision. And Kamala, people were mad at Joe to change election, and Kamala Harris couldn't even say what she would do differently, and that was supposed to be a layup question from Sunny Hostin on The View, and she screwed up. My sister had a dinner with a relative the other night who's a staunch Democrat, and when Kamala Harris said nothing comes to mind on The View, that gave them pause and like, oh my gosh, I don't think she's really ready. I don't think she's ready. And I'm talking staunch, lifelong Detroit Democrats. These they had a bad candidate, you know. Um and then you got really competent debaters like Charlie Kirk and so on who are willing to go out there and really make their case. Um so the left really has to get out of buzzwords. They really need to get out of buzzwords. In media, I thought more news organizations would, for the better or worse, quickly embrace explicit anti-Trump antagonism to recreate the audience and subscriber magic of 2017 to 2020 subscription, but the early returns show a surprising amount of not only exhaustion, but also, well, what conservatives might call restraint and what the left might call capitulation. Okay. There are I don't know, maybe the left definitely calls capitulation. Um and I don't know if I necessarily want to say restraint. I think they're in the phase that they're really upset about Biden and Kamala Harris. And I think they're trying to see I think they're trying to gauge what the real mood of the country is, because I think this election and this year really took a lot of people by storm. And I think the media will recalibrate. I don't think that we'll see them be fair to Trump. I don't think they're being fair to Trump and stuff. You can look at how they're treating like um some of his candidates for nominees, like Pete Hegseth. they're not being fair. It's not that they're lacking, like, they're showing restraint or something. They're still being disgusting in some of the ways that they cover the news. So I think this little section here is being a little too generous to them. But as far as being the full on resistors the world is following, I think they'll probably at least wait until he swears in before they pull the Chicken Little stuff, you know? Um oh, I didn't see this before. Katie Drumwood, global editor, director of Wired. Um First, I was wrong about two big things in Wired's orbit this year. First, the most meaningful technological X factor in this year's US federal election. I was bracing myself and our reporters and our audience for the prospect of disruptive hacks and digital intrusions, the messy whack a mole of social platforms and disinformation, and everyone's 2024 election bugaboo, generative AI. What I didn't adequately anticipate was that the X factor would be X itself, and that Elon Musk's hard right pivot would see his own X account and the platform right large transform into an influential megaphone for Donald Trump. I didn't expect Elon to get as engaged as he was, but this is someone who did vote for Joe Biden in 2020, and what got kind of nothing to show for it. Like, on top of Biden just not being a very good president, um, he doesn't like the censorship. He doesn't like how he tried to do this nice thing with X. He tries to do this nice thing as far as like um as far as green energy and stuff with Tesla and other things, and people come at him. You know, people have tried to stop him from being paid, literally stopped him from being paid because he made an agreement with his board that if he could reach X amount of profits for Tesla, then he would get X amount of money, and if he didn't, then he wouldn't get paid anything. And we're like, bet we could do that. So he passed all of the goals, expectations, and the court's been holding up his payout that it was negotiated with Tesla. So that's one thing. And they've also been going after him for not hiring enough non-citizens in his company, in the way that he took over X, and there's been this huge anti um, advertising situation where people are like boycotting him kind of and stuff. So people have thrown a lot of things at Elon. So if you don't expect that at some point that he's going to retaliate to go to bet on the best horse for him, I think that's insane. And then also thinking that Trump was the best horse for the country. It didn't have to be Trump who he backed, but he was the best one. So people being surprised, um, I'm surprised by how much he went out there. Like, you had Mark Cuban, do some chats or whatever, go on a couple of podcasts to try to, push for Kamala Harris. But Elon was in um Pennsylvania, going around having these talks and so on, went to the rallies, and was having people sign up uh sign his pledge for the First and Second Amendment, and getting other people to do that, and giving away money. Like, he put a lot on the line because he felt that it was worth it. And the amount, some people just give money and this, it is what it is, and you hire other people and they do whatever. Elon put his money where his mouth was, but he actually did work himself. So I am surprised with how much dedication um he put into everything. I am. That was a bit surprising. But these people act like it was evil for him to do all this stuff when it just kind of makes the most sense for him. And there's other people on X who obviously have large reach who could be anti-Trump, and they can tweet and reach their followers, and Elon can reach his followers. He still has free speech despite being the person who is over X. And second, I was wrong about just how real a potential TikTok ban was going to get throughout all of the legislative and legal turmoil, even after President Biden signed off on a bill that would ban TikTok or force its sale to a U.S. company. I was confident that the company would prevail. Instead, it's a nail biter. The Supreme Court is now poised to hear a Hail Mary emergency appeal from TikTok. In so doing, the court will make a precedent setting decision about the sanctity of the First Amendment. Whatever you think, TikTok or its potential threats to national security, a court decision that weakens the First Amendment creates a dangerous precedent, particularly with the Trump administration chomping at the bit to go after journalists. This is so so this is so silly how they have to always like come at Trump and stuff. Um with this First Amendment stuff. It was Kamala Harris who wanted to go after social media companies and wanted to limit them. Those are things that she said. And you can say, well, she said that in the past. But she said what she said when she was running for president about hate speech laws and going after misinformation. The Biden administration tried to have that misinformation czar or whatever. That got a lot of backlash and was, I think at least dissolved from what we could see. So if you want to talk about threats to the First Amendment, Harris was a threat to First Amendment stuff. And so Biden is the one who signed the ban. The Biden Harris administration, they're the one who signed the ban. And somehow this comment still flips all the way back to, yeah, it'll be really bad if the Supreme Court does this because Trump's going after journalists. Maybe he would have, if you're talking about George Stephanopoulos, that he certainly defamed Trump. These people are so silly. So silly. This person said RFK, surprised about RFK. Wrong to think that it would be so busy post election. That's kind of a boring one. Robert Albritton, founder of Notice, said, I don't know if this is a wrong about thing, but the biggest media surprise of the year was the depth of the Washington Post resistance subscriptions. I suspected that there were some individuals who subscribed to the Post and very likely New York Times as a way to actively fund resistance to the MAGA movement. I just did not realize the magnitude of the situation. It really puts the big name publications in a bind. They must reflect the political bias of their subscription base or their livelihoods are put at risk. I have no reason to question David Flick's reporting that the Post lost 200,000 subscribers because of the non-endorsement of any presidential candidate, nor can anyone deny such a loss carries very real economic consequences and makes non-biased, non-partisan reporting more difficult and the opposite of what our democracy needs. That is true. A lot of these new, whether it's Washington Post or mainstream news networks, a lot of these people do capitulate to their audiences. And I'm not saying people don't report stuff, or whatever, but um based on how their audience may react, but it's in people's minds how their audience might react when they report things and they might say something and tick someone off. Like I have someone in my comments right now mentioning my analysis of Shapiro versus Candace Owens. So they must have found one of my old videos and stuff. And a lot of people didn't like that. Didn't take like the position that I had on Owens and stuff. And it is what it is, or people got mad at some of the stuff that I would say criticizing Donald Trump during the primary or I guess even when he was the nominee. I still had plenty to say about things that upset me. And when I started saying things, that, Trump is upsetting me, people would ask, kind of worry, like, well, what are you going to do about your subscribers? I'm like, I can't just muzzle myself and refuse to, say how I feel just because I might lose some followers or whatever. It is what it is, but I can't I can't live like that. I can't live like that. And I think most of you have appreciated that. Craig in the comments said call balls and strikes. Yeah, I like to call balls and strikes and And Craig said he respects that. And so I think other people, at least who stuck around, have respected that. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But I at least like to explain where I'm coming from. And so the abortion topic, not everyone who follows me is as passionate about the issue as I am, or as a stickler on the issue, as far as my positions, but people respect it. So the Washington Post, the people were so angry just at a non-endorsement. Now, there's no reason to endorse, because those people were going to vote for whoever they're going to vote for anyway. And I think people would just naturally suspect that the Washington Post was going to endorse Kamala Harris. I think it said a lot about maybe they didn't expect her to win. Um, you know, but it definitely wasn't going to move the needle. So everyone flipping out that they just didn't bite the bullet and just do it anyway and support her uh was just insane. The reaction that the people at Washington Post, I can't say it was surprising, but it was definitely insane. It was definitely insane. And it was funny to watch. Matt Iglesias, author of Slow Boring. Matt does more than that, but anyway, this is the quote that I shared. I thought Joe Biden was going to prove his doubters wrong at the big debate. I know that ever since that humiliation, the whole world thinks the entire media was in on a massive cover up. But the fact is, many of us, and seemingly many members of his team, genuinely thought the situation was better than it was. In a lot of ways, it's more embarrassing to have been gullible and wrong when so many people with no sources and no inside info could see it clearly. But that's what happened. I was just wrong about one of the big questions of the year. Matt. It was just easy to see for a long time, because it's not just Biden mumbling or being slow, or why do you think they were avoiding all those press conferences? He barely talked to the media. Why do you think they didn't have a lot of cabinet meetings or just meetings? Why do you think that was? Why do you think that there were so many lids? Why do you think Biden went on so many vacations? Why do you think all that was? You didn't why do you think that when he was called, there's these questions and these pictures of these journalists like on the cue cards, and he was so handled? He would sometimes say, if I say this or I do this, my team is going to get mad at me. He just seemed like a coddled old man who was being managed by a team because they're trying to shelter him and protect him. It just seems so obvious. And you're like, how do these ordinary people with no inside sources see what we all miss? It's because your inside sources probably lied to you. They probably lied to you because they were protecting the old man, and you wanted to believe the lies because you wanted to protect the old man. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. I thought it was pretty darn obvious, even in 2020, that there was something wrong with Joe. The man is up there in age, man. And I'm not saying everyone his age, is just lost it or whatever, but it's not just an ageism thing. It's not just an ageism thing, but the craziest thing, don't forgive these people. Please don't forgive them. Please do not forgive them, because they lied to you. They know that they lied to you. This is what drives me crazy, because we've been having these conversations for a long time, granted, okay? A long time. But when that viral clip of Obama walking Biden out of that fundraiser, when there were discussions about that, people were saying, "Oh no, it's the angles, it's the cheap fakes," and the pro Biden is fine people were sharing a video of them zooming in and out, in and out, in and out, like he looks fine. And then we were looking at a video that was like full length of him just kind of like slowly creeping off the stage. We're like, he doesn't look great. He doesn't look great. And what's funny is that people there at the fundraiser, George Clooney's fundraiser, were looking at Biden, and there's journalists and popular people of influence there at the fundraiser who are saying he doesn't look good. And everyone on the outside who just saw a clip are like, he doesn't look good. People who were there with inside knowledge knew the same thing that we knew. And they still decided to be quiet. And journalists decided to lie about it. The White House decided to cover for it. And that was very close to the debate. So people were sitting there concerned, like, oh my gosh, she's got a debate coming up. Hopefully this is a bad night and he'll prove us all wrong. And then it was like, oh, it wasn't a bad night. It's just he's in decline of life. And then they decided to ask all these questions after the debate because they wanted to push him out. But what if Biden was right? What if he was just sick? What if he just had a cold? What if it was just a bad night and he would have did better in another debate? But they still decided to like throw the old man off the cliff at that point. Because you knew you just couldn't hide it anymore. You just couldn't hide it anymore. You just couldn't. My sister said, we have to forgive Christina. We just have to hold them accountable. Oh, Christianity's got me again. Like, these people didn't ask for forgiveness, though. Oh, wait. See if there's some more. There's obviously some more. Get some more. Ryan Graham said both 2016 and 2020, my gut told me Trump would win, but the polls, especially last minute flurry, suggested otherwise. So I put my faith in the polls. But what is the point if somebody like me, if I just defer to the polls, anybody can do that, not doing that anymore. Duh. Like the polls at least just said it was tight. So it was flip of the coin. So what did you think? If your gut told you that Trump was going to win and the polls all said it was tight, why not just go with your gut feeling that Trump was going to win? Because maybe you just didn't want him to or whatever. But there were people talking about internal polling, and now came out like right after the election that Harris's people had internal polling that just had her behind the whole entire time. So it seemed like the real polling just never had her having a shot. Pam Westerstein, president of Vox Media, said, I don't usually dare to make political prediction outside of the anxious poll watching, but we spent the last New Year's Eve with friends who had a tradition of forecasting the coming year. At the time, Nikki Haley was running far behind Trump and Biden was still in the race. So my prediction was intentionally counterintuitive. We'll have a female president. My point was that given indictments and advanced age, circumstances could change dramatically over the next 10 months. Well, they did and they didn't. And clearly my bold prediction did not come to pass. As far as contributing factors, more appended expectations, I'm very familiar with deep loyalty created by my podcast. Chat shows with wonderful alchemy of talent and topic. It's a focus in our own business that there's so much intimacy in the audience relationship. But what some are now calling the podcast election revealed that I'd underestimated the power of leaders like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, and bro influencers in the medium whose shows hold more sway with many young men than celebrities, athletes, or legacy media outlets with broader appeal. If you listen to people on podcasts and stuff and you hear them talk for hours like every day, you feel like you may know a lot of stuff about Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift doesn't sit and talk to you for hours like throughout the week. You if you watch Theo Vaughn or you watch Joe Rogan, you feel like Joe thinks that like he wanted to talk to Kamala Harris. He said we didn't even talk about politics. Like I feel like if you sit down and you talk to someone for a while, you start to get to a sense of who they are as a person. And so I think a lot of people they sit down and they listen to these podcasts and they feel like they can kind of get a sense of how someone is as a person. And so I think it's very obvious why some people would trust these podcast spaces more than they would trust celebrities, you know, bopping in and out of their lives, who don't pay their bills. We pay their bills. Um, but by then, I don't that was just kind of a last push or whatever. I think Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and stuff. And Theo Vaughn's podcast was obviously earlier. I think a lot what their stuff did was in the Flagrant podcast too, because people are trying to push that Trump was also like losing it and stuff, and that they're such monsters, and JD Vance is weird, and they just dispelled a lot of those myths that people were pushing. And because they kind of seemed more normal, and people get so mad when you humanize these people, um, it opened up a lot of people who maybe were low information voters, and just like, okay, if you guys were lying to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? Because they don't seem flipping crazy. They don't seem crazy. So it was a good thing that they went on those podcasts, but at the end of the day, Kamala Harris is still a really bad candidate, and that's it's not like Trump ran a really excellent, stellar, election. There were mistakes along the way, but Kamala was just fighting an uphill battle anyway, and then she was probably one of the worst politicians who's ever tried to do this in a very short amount of time. Um, uh, Joshua Topolsky, president and editor in chief of Sherwood News, said, "I think one thing I got wrong, in my head at least, was how quickly America would forget or simply not care about the chaos of the first Trump presidency. Our collective short-term memory seems to be blown, which doesn't bode well for anyone who sees history as a lesson." Bro, boo to you. Um, yeah, there was a lot of orchestrated chaos in the first Trump presidency. But that doesn't mean that the chaos was actually real. Like, something that seemed chaotic and that was dominating the news was the Trump Russia collusion stuff that didn't pan out. That dominated the news like all the time, and then it didn't pan out. So a lot of the chaos, and there it did seem like there was chaos, but that was just a lot of things generated by the mainstream news. But most people, they financially felt like they were doing better. They kind of felt like they were safer, and that the world wasn't on fire quite like it was before or like is now. People got to compare and contrast, and they decided wanted to hit reverse instead of driving off the cliff. So um your imaginary world of chaos is what it is. But you know I mean, COVID was a really tough time, but that also went into the Biden administration, and Biden was tougher with those mandates and stuff. So Katie Davies, U.S. editor-in-chief of Daily Mail, said, "Covering breaking news in the U.S., it can be hard to feel shocked anymore, especially during the set-piece political events. The candidates are too rehearsed, and the sound bites are all focus groups. So I went into a debate season expecting very little. That's why the Biden-Trump debate sticks out as a wow moment for me. It was like watching a domino fall in slow motion." Yeah, that was the gaping mouth Biden split screen with Trump. It just was awful for him. Austin Reef, co-founder of CEO of Morning Brew, said, "I underestimated the impact X would have on the presidential election." This one is an interesting one. Ryan Broderick, author of Garbage Day, said, "I have to admit I got the election wrong, at least in terms of what mattered. The Harris campaign's late summer TikTok onslaught felt new and exciting. The memes, the viral sound bites, the staggering engagement numbers based on everything we understand about how the internet reflects or influences real life. They had it in the bag, and then they didn't. The fact that not only Brat Summer amounted to diddly squat in the end, but that Harris' equally massive Facebook popularity similarly went nowhere has some stark ramifications for how we view the internet. We've known for a while that older social networks like Facebook or Twitter, now X, have increasingly falling out of the step with the zeitgeist. If magicians eating out of toilets and owl shrimp Jesus and crypto scams are any indication, but now it's worth asking if all social media has become equally irrelevant. What makes this question especially thorny, though, is we do know that some things we see and share online do genuinely matter still. Just ask Stanley about how well their cups continue to sell this year. Ask Sabrina Carpenter's team about how her Spotify numbers versus her ticket sales. Um, so yeah, he goes on a little bit, but the Brat Summer stuff, Kamala Harris, TikTok, situation, that's all it was though. The Brat Summer, the vibes, the feels, and all that stuff. There wasn't a lot of substance there. Like Trump, his TikToks did very well, and they would have policy stuff on there. So as far as who's making a more convincing argument, TikTok, you don't even know how much of a share of TikTok is I guess maybe somebody knows, but a lot of it sways young, so maybe a lot of people sharing the brat stuff couldn't even go out and vote anyway. But you need more than vibes, you need more than feels. Like people were really excited to have a different option than Biden first week, second week, so on or whatever. But she didn't have enough to stand the test of time. Like if the election was held like 2 days after or 2 weeks after they swapped out Biden, maybe she would have did better or something. I don't know, but more time people got to know Kamala Harris, the less they liked her. They didn't like her. The whole brat, the all that stuff isn't even like it's very inorganic. And a lot of stuff they paid people to push that crap. They paid people to push it. So it's just inorganic stuff, and you don't know how much stuff is pushed by bots. So being all surprised if you fell for that, like people have to I think people need to really reanalyze who they're getting their information from if they could be so duped by all this stuff. It's not that all this stuff was like real life interactions with individuals that they could actually influence. Let me see. There's still quite a bit, but let me see if there's any other really interesting ones. Roland Martin is probably the most childish one that's on here. I didn't think America was dumb enough to put a man back in the Oval Office who is ineptness dealing with COVID wrecked the American economy, was so pissed that he got voted out that he led to an insurrection, lied incessantly when he was in the Oval Office, and is a despicable human being. Yet here we are. So America proved me wrong, and now we have to suffer from a sheer madness for 4 years. That's why my hashtag Roland Martin unfiltered shirt says, "Don't blame me. I voted for the black woman." Trying to sell some shirts there, huh, bro? Uh, childish. I wouldn't want to go on Roland Martin's show because one, he could talk so fast and he's so aggressive, and that's not really kind of my style. I just, but he's just so childish. Kamala Harris had issues, man, and the economy was it was wrecked or whatever, but it was stalled because of COVID. People made the choice, and not just the White House issued guidelines to slow the spread and stuff, and state governments followed suit. So it was kind of a collective decision that we decided to make. I don't think it was, in hindsight, the right decision. I actually didn't really think it was the right decision at the time, but it is what it is. And Biden continued on that. So the Biden Harris administration continued with the COVID policies. It kept people locked down longer than they should have, tried to coerce people with the jab. So, giving people really the option of, are they going to bow down and take the jab? Or are they going to get kicked out of the military? Are they going to lose their jobs? And so on. So where's the passion there, Roland? Where's the passion there, Roland? So Trump did lead an insurrection. That's that's nonsense. That's nonsense. There was a riot for sure, but it just stuff got out of hand. But it to go as far as calling it insurrection didn't happen. Um, Josh here says, talks about the decline of Biden. This might be interesting. Maybe I'll read this one and kind of call it a day. We still got to do the Planned Parenthood thing. So, Josh Barrow said the most consequential thing I was wrong about was the extent of the President Biden's decline. I was shocked and appalled by his performance in the June 27th debate, but I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was. I had put too much stock in his satisfactory scripted performances like the State of the Union and misread the president's avoidance of unscripted settings as a misguided effort to keep him on message rather than a sign that he was incapable of engaging in them in the way he did not very long ago. In part, I misread signs. This was because I took Biden's choice to agree to an early debate as a sign that he and his advisors had confidence. Okay, that he would perform adequately in one. Weirdly, I think they did have that confidence. The delusion about Biden's faculties seems to have extended throughout the White House to people who have far less excuse than I did for not knowing better. I come out of 2024 with a lot of contempt for the president and for the people around him who have essentially been engaged in elder abuse, and also with a fair amount of embarrassment that I didn't see through their deception earlier. It's just so hard to believe these people. Like, I know you can delude yourself, but um it's great. Oh, I didn't realize that Ben Shapiro was on here. My elections predictions were pretty good this year. The only state I called wrong was New Hampshire, which I suggested would go for Trump. He lost it by about 23,000 votes. With that said, even I was surprised at the lack of traction from legacy media narratives in 2024. I don't think it can be overstated just how horrible the media discredited themselves by pretending that Joe Biden wasn't senile for years on end, and then suddenly swiveling and deciding that they were shocked to find that he was mentally incompetent. Um, mhm. Ben Smith, co-founder and editor-chief of Semafor, said, "I was very wrong on the one theory on the presidential campaign. In a piece headline, will Kamala Harris short run kill the permanent campaign? In my defense, the iron law of question mark headline states that the answer is always no. Big picture, I was wrong about the pace, at least of some big news transformations. I thought that the Wall Street Journal would struggle to change instead of it's red hot. I thought the Washington Post would now acquired Punchbowl, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the end of it. I thought there might be more about Kamala Harris. I don't know what article he's talking about, but will Kamala Harris run kill the permanent campaign? Um, I I think she could have, basically, if she had won, but I'm glad she lost. I think that's one of the really important reasons why she should have lost, because they would have basically destroyed how campaigns work, and we wouldn't have had any reason to have confidence in our campaigns and how they're done, and that if you select someone in a primary that they're going to be on the November ballot. So I'm very, very glad that she lost. Um Anyway, let me address some of these comments that you guys have in the comments for me. Um, Someone left, uh, oh, this is a 5 things that I liked about your podcast in 2024. I liked your analysis of Shapiro's Owens War. Thank you. I like that you were live when most of your competitors are on vacation. Thank you. I like your insights and focus on abortion. Thank you. Of all the politician talking points out there, I am most closely aligned with your views. And I was born and raised in Oakland County, so I see things from a point very similar to yours. Being from Pontiac, Holly, and OCC, we may also have mutual friends. Um, are you from Holly? Being from Pontiac, Holly, and OCC, well, yeah. Huh. Thank you very much. Uh, we gotta I always appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much. That was from when I was talking earlier. Oh, this is a people like courage, and when Trump raised his fist and said "fight, fight, fight," the election was over. Not to mention there was gaslighting about the Biden's mental ability. Yeah, I think there were so many moments in the election where it was kind of like it's over, and that was really a like, how do you come back from like being able to top that? And Kamala Harris never produced any sort of energy that could combat that. You know, when and that was when Elon really decided to go all in, I think, when that moment happened, because he's like, that takes a particular amount of kind of courage that you can't just teach. And to get up there and just be like, fight, 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 to let his supporters know that he's okay, that he was going to stand there in defiance. Like, I heard comedians talk about this crazy man is actually shouting like in the direction of where the bullets are coming from, and that's just the kind of energy that you'd be like, yeah, go ahead and save the world. And you just never got that vibe from Kamala Harris. Never, ever, ever. You might get a lecture about the middle class and, you know, why equity is more important than equality and all this stuff. But as far as being able to actually lead, you never got that vibe from her. Never, ever, ever. I think in any of the time that she's been in office. So, oh, your sister lived in Holly. Your sister lived in Holly. I did live. I graduated from Holly High, so um, we got a lot in common, I guess. April said you love how easy I am to listen to. Thank you very much. Grand Haven. You're from Grand Haven, huh? Um, it was gonna read Anna's comment. I loved your video singing Les Mis song. Funny, yes, but your voice is absolutely amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do like to sing. Do like to sing. I still have a little bit of my cold. I think when I talk, the more that I talk, it kind of starts building up. But I hold on to them for a long time. I don't know what it is about me, but I just hold on to them for a long time. I have been taking like medicine and other stuff like that, but um, you know, you live in Arkansas now, huh? April, so okay, so before I let you go, I want to show you this video from Planned Parenthood, and I had wrote on Facebook and YouTube like what stories are underreported. Most people agree that like Biden's decline was probably the most underreported story. Another one that I guess I don't have time to really go into is Biden negotiating like to the Biden administration negotiating to get the death penalty removed from like 9/11 conspirators. Um and so his the Pentagon like tried to override him, and then the court said that they couldn't override them. And so they're trying to get rid of the death penalty for them. So that seems like a wacky thing to me. Um but I don't feel like that's really has been talked about enough. There's a lot of things that haven't been talked about enough. Um That's pretty bad, pretty bad. I'm sure we'll have more time to talk about that later because that's gonna be a story that kinda continues on. But, something that someone mentioned on Facebook was that Planned Parenthood made a video about virginity, and how it's, doesn't mean anything, and it's more like a construct. And so I had seen I hadn't watched the video. I had seen it, but I hadn't watched it. So I decided to go ahead and watch it because it sounded wild. So I got to show you guys this video. It is going to talk about some sexual things. I think we're all adults here, but I just kind of wanted to save it to the end because of some of the language or whatever. But it is wild, and it just really goes to show that these organizations are about normalizing sex education in your kids' schools and stuff. It's about normalizing sex, not discouraging people from actually having it, including minors. So here we go. If you haven't seen this, I'm sorry. This- it's just wild.
Virginity. What is it? And what's the big deal about losing it? Let me cut to the chase. Virginity is a completely made up concept. It's a term that was created simply to control and shame people, mainly women. A virgin is someone who's never had sex, but it's not as simple as it seems.
Okay. How is it completely made up? When there's a word, you just explain what the word is, and that there are women and people, not just women, men, people who exist who hadn't had sex. Okay. My parents, when they got married, they were virgins. My dad had a white suit, my mom had a white dress. I'm a virgin, and other people are virgins. And I I don't understand this. Like, it's totally made up. Here's a definition. There's people who exist who are this thing. Like, let's keep going.
For one thing, medically, virginity isn't a real thing. In some cultures, people place a lot of importance on the hymen, a thin, fleshy tissue located at the opening of your vagina, as a marker of virginity. But the status of your hymen doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the status of your hymen, it might be injured or gone or whatever. I remember in Supernatural when Dean came back from the dead. His he was like kind of re-virginized, but obviously he was a heathen and had a lot of sex on the show. And I remember Sam was like, I don't even think God can do that, like remake you a virgin or whatever. So he was eager to basically have his cherry popped or whatever. But yeah, but and there's even some cultures where people will have like reattachment surgery so people can believe that they're virgins and whatnot, because they do. There are cultures that place a lot of stock in that. But a virgin is someone who hasn't had sex. That the hymen, they can look and see, if there's a way to indicate whether you have or you haven't. But in I don't know if you would say medieval days, but back in the day in England and stuff, when they want to have the queen and the king get together and stuff, and they would have, some people would watch or whatever, but but people would check the bed and make sure there was a bit of blood and stuff. So yeah, it is a pretty big deal. But people wanted to be with virgins because that was a way to, if you haven't slept around and if you're carrying someone's seed, uh if you, if you haven't slept around, you obviously don't have someone's bastard in your womb. Okay. And if you get married to your husband, I mean, you could always dip out and be cheating on him or whatever, but that's just a way to ensure that the heir that you're carrying is actually the one of your husband or the king or the family that you married into or whatever. Like, that's, they weren't really having the big DNA tests and stuff back then. So that was a really important sort of thing. It's not imaginary. There's a lot of cultural context to it. And psychologically, let's keep watching. I'll have more commentary later.
Actually mean anything. That's because having penis and vagina sex is not the only way a hymen can stretch open. It can happen by putting something in your vagina like a tampon or a finger, riding a bike, or doing sports. So you can't tell if someone's had sex by the way their hymen looks or feels. Another reason the idea of virginity is complete nonsense is that sex means different.
But people still know whether or not they're virgins. So it's not the only way to determine. They use that to discredit whether people are virgins. That people know. People know. People could be falsely accused of not being one, but even if I had torn something open for riding a bike or stick a tampon too far inside of me, I would still know that I've never slept with a man. Okay?
Different things to different people. Generally speaking, society tends to define sex in a very narrow way: penetration, penis into vagina. But where does that definition leave queer people, or folks who can't or don't have penis and vagina sex and choose to have oral, anal, or another type of sex instead? And not everyone's first sexual experience is consensual, meaning that they were forced or pressured into having sex.
And that would be terrible. That would be terrible and criminal. And people should go to jail for that. To rob someone of their bodily autonomy, of their virginity, that'd be terrible. Absolutely awful. Um this segment here about where does that leave queer people? The Guttmacher Institute, I'm going back to the point I made about Thomas Sowell believes and he's written about how sex education in schools and stuff are because the original pitch was to cut down on like teen pregnancy and people, getting STDs and other stuff like that. We don't call them STDs anymore. But I guess I do, but there's like a different term for them. But he said the actual goal of this stuff is to normalize sex. And the Guttmacher Institute, they've I basically I think revealed that to be the truth too. And I wrote about this, and of course, God is blatantly against abortion in one of the chapters, but they speak out against teaching that you should be celibate, like in schools, in like abstinence only education and stuff. They're against those sorts of things. And part of the reason why they're against those sorts of things is the sort of stigmas or shame that you may make queer people feel and other stuff like that. So it really goes to, it's not about trying to stop people from being impregnated or even like stopping people from getting STDs and stuff. It's about normalizing sex, the way you feel about sex, that you have sex and all this stuff. People are like, this is repulsive. Make it stop. I can't take this. That's why I put it at the end, guys. I was trying to give you an out. But this is what the biggest abortion chain in the country is pushing, and Planned Parenthood makes content and pushes content for your kids' schools, guidelines for them to have this kind of sex education stuff. So people need to be really focused on, if you have your kids in public schools, where are they getting this kind of information from? How are they going about sex education? Because the goal isn't to just make sure your kids aren't having sex or aren't getting knocked up and aren't having STDs. They're trying to normalize sex and remove the stigma of it. And this kind of classroom breakdown, I don't know what the age group is, but nowhere in this video do they make it just kind of known like, hey, minors, don't do that. That's not a good thing. Like, or implying that there's like an age that it kind of becomes appropriate. They say that sex means different things to different people, and touching yourself and pleasure and empowerment and all this stuff, not any of the gravity of what happens when you actually go that far.
There is also a double standard on who carries the burden of virginity. Society puts pressure on men for not having sex at the exact same time they shame women for having it. Make it make sense.
That's actually a good point. And that's not how I operate. I'm like, if you were around, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, it's not great to do that. And I think that men and women should both save themselves for marriage and stuff. And I know not everybody does that, but that's I think it would make the world better if that were the case. But yeah, I don't think we should be high-fiving dudes who are sleeping around while we're shaming women for their body counts. And I know a lot of people in the red pill community will talk about how that the different effects that it has on men and women are evident. And I don't really dispute that to some degree, because men and women do. I guess it probably also depends on the men and the women, but in just a general sense of this conversation, men and women kind of have different social attachments to sexual encounters, but that doesn't mean that there's not serious repercussions of when people decide to have sex, whether it's supposed to be meaningless sex or whatever. But Bridget Phatasy, I don't know if that's how you say your last name. I also wrote about her in my book, of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion, but she wrote a really excellent article some years ago called Why I Regret Being a Slut. And she wrote it for Playboy, I think. And no, she used to be a writer for Playboy, but she read a book about how um the like sexual liberation for women and stuff was basically a bill of goods that was sold, eh, that was just a lot of lies, and how messed up her thinking was, and that she thought of men as disposable to the point where even when she would meet a nice guy, she couldn't even like interpret it well in her brain, when there was like a healthy kind of relationship at hand. And you know, it just really screwed her up, while she was pursuing like a man eater persona. And I don't think it's good for men, and I don't think it's good for women. I think responsibility is good for men, and to have a family, to ground them, to be responsible citizens of the world, to work, to strive for something better, to build. Men are great at being protectors and building, but they have to have reasons to do that, and so I think it's this hookup culture isn't good for men or women. And so yeah, I don't think it's good to be like bragging like, you slept with these many women, because that's still someone's daughter. You can't be like, my son is out here putting it down, and then be mad that somebody slept with your little girl. That's not fair. So that's the only point I'll give here. But they're not even bringing up this point for a good purpose.
Either way, shame has no place in someone's personal decisions about sex. It's time to throw away the notion of losing your virginity. What if instead of losing something, we reframe it as gaining?
What are you gaining?
Because the truth is, when we make our own decision to become sexually active, we aren't setting ourselves up to lose anything at all. We hope we are gaining things like intimacy, self-insight, pleasure, and empowerment. All of these
What if you're a
myths
minor?
around sex and virginity can be so hurtful and overwhelming. But here's the one truth you should remember. Sex is defined by one thing and one thing only: you. Maybe that's being fingered for the first time. Maybe it's having anal sex. Maybe it's having your first orgasm. Maybe it's masturbating for the first time, or when you enthusiastically consent to sex. That's the beauty of your sexual journey. You're in charge, and you can figure it out on your own terms. Choosing to have sex, when, what kind, where, who with, is something that only you get to define.
Yeah, and that's Planned Parenthood, ladies and gentlemen. No kind of like PSA for like, hey, sex is for older people. Nothing about trying to disengage minors from doing it or anything like that. Just you're empowered. You're gaining something. Don't think you're losing something. You're gaining intimacy. And okay. There's one time, my sister was on Facebook, and someone had one of her friends that made a post about like, do you regret your first time and would you change it or whatever? And there were so many women that had regrets about their first time, and that they would have changed it, and or opted to not have sex when they did. And maybe the rebuttal to Planned Parenthood would be like, well, that's because people shame them and that they make them feel bad. Not everybody decides to feel that shame, and maybe in hindsight they're like, you know what, maybe it wasn't good for me sleeping around with someone who cared so little for me. I've heard of women who had abortions, and they were sleeping around with somebody, and they're mad and they want to continue like sleeping around and other stuff like that, but just kind of, I don't know, maybe felt cheap that the man, all they had to offer them was the cash to go kill the baby. And it is, I don't know, so kind of crazy to think about, because they want to do that and they want to go on with their life, living a promiscuous kind of lifestyle and stuff, but still psychologically they're like, well, dang, like, isn't there something more to it than this? You know? Um, I don't think we're wired in the long run to throw ourselves out there like this. I think there's real kind of issues and damage that can come, not just, you know, physically from what diseases you could get or pregnancies you may not want, that I absolutely don't believe that you should kill just because you don't want them. Um, but emotionally, all kinds of different hangups that you can have. And you can feel shame without someone, or know that it's wrong, or feel bad about it without someone pointing the finger in your face and saying that, like, you're a sinner and you're going to hell because you did this. You know, you can just to if you, especially if you're with someone who doesn't really think too much of you. And I've heard so many stories from girls who are with guys who clearly didn't like them, and they didn't get the memo at first. They couldn't see it till sometime later. And just the hurt that expanded, and the drama that expanded from those failed relationships. I would just encourage people to wait if you can. Wait, and it'll be worth it one day. And think about all these babies that have been lost. Like, majority of abortions happen because well, they're from unmarried people. Like 86% of them, if I'm not mistaken. You know, most of them are from unmarried couples. So there's a lot of death and destruction and grief and shame and, you know, psychological problems from just treating sex like a game. But if that makes Planned Parenthood dollars, I guess it's good for business. Anyway, uh I'm sorry to my viewers. But someone mentioned it on Facebook and I'm like, I gotta go look at that today. How bad it was. Yeah. Virginity is a real thing. You just don't They just don't like, they don't want any shame attached to people's behavior. So they're trying to say it's not really a big deal. You know, even though that they define it, and there's clearly like, I don't even know if they do. Yeah, they did. But there's someone who hasn't had sex. It's just someone who hasn't had sex. Um, there's a sweet story about this pastor who passed away a long time ago now, but he was the brother of the my dad's pastor, the church that he grew up in. And his wife, they not only did they not sleep together, she wouldn't even kiss him to their wedding day. And so he said one night they're out together and the moon was behind them and she looked so beautiful. And he's like, I just want to kiss you. I just want to kiss you. And she's just like, that's for my husband. That's for my husband. So really, really sweet story. So she ended up he lived to about in his 80s. And he was a very energetic, lively guy. And after she passed away, he followed not too long after. But they had a very lovely relationship, very lovely relationship. And I just hope, you know, people can go back to that. People can go back to that courting and all that stuff. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Happy New Year. I hope you guys aren't going to do anything crazy tonight. I know some people just stay home and watch the ball drop or go to sleep, wake up, it's a new day. I will be at church, watch night service, you know, have been going to those for all my years of life. So that's where I will be tonight, in church tonight. My brother will be preaching, and I have to try to pick a song that's not too hard on my voice. so I can sing a little something tonight. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being with me another year. I think we consistently done like weekly stuff for maybe the past few years now, at least two. So we've done a lot of streaming and had a lot of conversations. And many of you I see repeatedly in the comments. I know not everybody comments, but I know not everybody watches live. But again, I just thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for your support. Thank you for your gifts, for your super chats and your stickers and your stars and your the donations you leave on the site. And any little bit just helps. And I appreciate it so much. I'm looking forward to January. I'm looking forward to going to the inauguration and going back there and having a good time and being able to report to you guys all kind of stuff that's going on. Actually, there was a story that I wanted to talk about, but the other article just kind of took such a long time that I just kind of forgot about it. But there was a band from an HBCU college that is playing at the inauguration, and people are upset about it. Quote unquote Black Twitter is upset about it. So I have to do another side video, I guess. But it's just incredible. I was talking to my older sister about it, and she's just like, people need to make up their mind. Do they want representation? Because they'll complain about not enough Black people being in the Republican Party and there being no representation, but then there's representation and people doing stuff, and then they're coons and they're cowards and they're all kinds of different stuff. And so, you know, I don't focus a ton on race or whatever, but I know that my perspective is important for some people to see, and I know I get called all kinds of nasty names, and you know, it's not a big deal to me, you know, not emotionally a big deal to me. I may laugh at it or whatever, or use it for content, but it doesn't wear me down because I think a lot of people are just really, really ignorant and stuff. And but I see a change out there, and there's more people being vocal, more people speaking up and just sticking true to what they believe. And maybe some people, at least a lot of people are saying both sides suck. At least I guess that's in progress. But um I want to be out there, just continue spreading my perspective, and that helps someone kind of think through their thoughts and get to a place where they can critically assess their beliefs and their morals and their values and the policies, you know, and they make informed decisions. That's great. So that's what I've been doing here, and I thank you guys for being along on the ride. So be safe out there, enjoy your new year. Hopefully no one's out in the road being crazy, and yeah, just be safe. And I hope to see you guys on I had said I wasn't going to stream the rest of the week, and I was just going to see you guys on Monday. Then I got that line about like, I'm so glad you're streaming while everyone else is on vacation. But I think I'm gonna take a couple days. So I will see you guys on the 6th. I still might pop up and do some videos here or there. So probably not a full live stream, but thank you guys. And again, very grateful to you. And I will see you in the new year.